Okay, so now we're working with the VER. This is a country that exports. So we have quantity demand is 1,000 minus 5p, quantity supplied 5p minus 100. Start off with the free trade price of 150, VER is 100, and then the free trade price, when we limit our exports to 100, we're acting as a monopolist in world markets, we're large, that jacks up the world price to 160. So where do we start off? So initially, this is what our graph looks like. We want to get our endpoints. So when the price is 200, we don't buy any. When the price is 0, we buy 1,000. When the price is 20, we don't make any. So those are the endpoints for our supply and demand. So initially we start off at a free trade price of 150. So 150 into the demand curve is 1,000 minus 5 times 150. So that means we're going to buy 250 of these. How many are we making? Put that in the supply curve. 150 times 5 minus 100 means we're making 650 of these to start off with. So initially we've got exports of 400, 650 minus 250. So what do things look like under free trade? So consumer surplus is equal to everything above the price consumers pay below the demand curve. So that's just area A. Producer surplus is everything below the price producers get to keep above the supply curve. So that's B, C, D, E, and F. Total surplus is going to be A, B, C, D, E, and F. So just areas of triangles and rectangles, 1/2 the base, 250, times the height of 50. That's consumer surplus, which is 6250. Producer surplus, 1/2 of the base, which is 650, times the height, which is 150 minus 20, or 130. So 1/2 times 130 times 650 for a grand total of 42250. Add those two guys together, and you get total surplus of 48,500. But what happens under the VER rather? So we're going to limit our exports. What's that going to do to the price? We got to figure that out by hand. How do we do that? Well, we're limiting the gap between quantity supplied and quantity demanded to be 100. So quantity supplied is 5p minus 100 minus quantity demanded, 5p. So get rid of your parentheses and don't lose track of your double negatives. So 10p minus 1100, 1200 is equal to 10p. So that means what we're going to end up doing is we're going to drive the price in our country down to 120. Now when we do that, how many are we going to buy? 120 into our demand curve. We're going to buy 400. How many are we going to produce? 120 times 5 minus 100. We're going to produce 500 of those. And so we did indeed limit our exports to 100 units. Now, why on earth would we do that? Because now we jacked up the price in world markets to 160. So what do things look like under the VER? Consumer surplus is now going to be area A and B. Everything above the price consumers pay, which is now 120, under the demand curve. So 1/2 of base, 400, times a height, 200 minus 120, for a grand total of 16,000. Producer surplus is a little bit trickier because they don't get a price of 120 on all the units. They get a price of 160 on the ones they still export. So producer surplus is F, D, and G. So it's 1/2 of a base of 500 times a height of 100 plus these two rectangles, 100 times 40, for a grand total of 29,000. Oops, one more zero for 1,000. So what's total surplus? What consumers get plus what the government gets, for a grand total of 45,000. And then we have our deadweight loss, areas C and E. So 1/2 of a base, 400 minus 250 times a height of 30. 1/2 of a base, 650 minus 500 times a height of 30. So the deadweight loss is 4,500. So, and again, details on how to come up with all these numbers are on the answer key, which is on Blackboard.